Olivia Clarke had been working at a passport office issuing ID cards for about 3 months. She was a trainee, and during that time, the woman managed to learn everything her position required. She also had a lot of work, and even though she was just a trainee, Olivia was always very diligent and extremely responsible. The problem was the head of the passport department, who behaved as if he controlled other people's lives. 3 months ago, David White hired Olivia for a trainee position and paid her half the salary she was supposed to get at this job. Instead of giving the woman a permanent position, the cunning boss continued to exploit the trainee in order to pocket part of her income. David had long been known for being venal and scheming, but it was very difficult to catch him red-handed. More than anything in the world, the head of the passport department liked having someone else do his dirty work, so he could always remain in the shadows. That was why he hired trainees more often than he actually needed. Firstly, he could pay them mere cents, and secondly, they couldn't stand up to him because the man could immediately fire them if they didn't do as he asked. God only knows how he managed to convince the financial and accounting departments to partake in his scheme. But the fact remained, it worked flawlessly. Moreover, David forced the employees to take bribes and deliberately entice clients in this form of gratitude. Those who refused to participate in the fraud or showed their dissatisfaction were dismissed immediately. Over time, only the compliant employees, who unwaveringly accepted David White's authority, remained working in the office. However, the man still couldn't make up his mind about Olivia. Before giving the new trainee a chance, David went over her file several times. Everything he read in there pointed to the fact that she would be a perfect addition to his office of scammers. The woman's parents were poor and couldn't provide their daughter with even the basics. I'm sure she had problems at school because of that, and that's definitely an advantage for me, David thought with a happy grin. He knew from experience that people who had difficult childhoods often held a grudge against society as a whole, since they felt they've been mistreated by it. Pocketing the bigger part of Olivia's salary, David was in no hurry to transfer her to a permanent position. The man liked manipulating the young woman. Being trustful and somewhat naive, Olivia didn't even understand that she was a puppet in the hands of an experienced puppeteer. Meanwhile, all that Olivia could do was endure her boss's mistreatment and hope that one day she would get the permanent position. She didn't really have any other options, so she held on to this job like a drowning man to a lifeline. As for Olivia's personal life, it seemed to be working out better than her job, but it was too early to say for sure. Olivia's boyfriend's name was Kevin Nelson, and he was from a wealthy family. His father owned several car dealerships and repair shops, which brought him a consistently high income. Unfortunately, Rupert Nelson wasn't exactly thrilled with his son's choice of girlfriends, since he believed that she was unworthy of their family. The businessman often told Kevin that he shouldn't be rushing into any relationships. Why would you want to spend your life with this simple woman without a cent to a name? Who are her parents? Some bankrupt farmers or homeless people? Are they roaming the country in some trailer home? If you marry into their family, you won't even notice when you'll become poor too. Rupert Nelson kept repeating, trying to impose his will on his son. Dad, I love Olivia and plan on marrying her. You only achieve success at about the age of 40. Give me a chance to show myself and decide what I want in this life, Kevin answered. Your Uncle Alfred and I did achieve everything on our own. I became a businessman, and he'll soon be appointed the new mayor of the city. It seems to me that we're both a worthy example to follow. Don't you think so? Rupert retorted. Kevin nodded understandingly that his father was right. The man was always proud of Uncle Alfred, who looked a lot like his father. The Nelson brothers had to go through a lot before they achieved success. And the most interesting thing was that each of them went their own way. Rupert chose business, while Alfred decided to build a career in politics. By the age of 50, both brothers had achieved everything they dreamed of as children. Kevin respected his uncle, who, unlike his father, was always calm and reasonable. The man knew that if Alfred Nelson found out about his relationship with Olivia, he certainly wouldn't make a problem about it. Kevin loved his girlfriend with all of his heart and was ready to fight for their future, even if it was his father he had to fight, even if he'd have to leave home for it. Meanwhile, Olivia was still trying to strengthen her precarious position at work. Since the woman took on virtually any assignment she was given, they always tried to pin the most difficult and time-consuming tasks on her. That October day, everything seemed off from the very morning. At first, Olivia mishandled a report and earned a disapproving look from the head of the passport office. A little later, still feeling emotional over the first mistake, she made another one when filling out some documents, which gave her colleagues a reason to criticize her. Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes. The woman felt that she was at risk of getting fired at any moment. And maybe that would have actually happened if it weren't for a very strange person who entered the office right at that time. He was a tall man with a thick beard and unkempt hair that clearly hadn't been cut for a long time. It was impossible to determine the exact age of the man. Given his appearance, he could be any age between 40 and 60. The stranger was dressed like a homeless person, and it actually seemed like he simply got lost and ended up in the wrong place. However, after the man talked to the guard, he confidently pointed the homeless man to the office, where they issued ID cards. Shuffling the soles of his worn-out boots, the homeless man went to the office and knocked softly on the door. "Come in," the female voice said. The man cautiously opened the door and froze in indecision. There were several tables inside the office, and all the clerks were sitting at them, immersed deeply in their work. Seeing the homeless man, the most experienced employees grimaced in disgust and continued to work as if nothing had happened. They obviously didn't intend to accept his application, which made the visitor visibly nervous. "Good afternoon. Excuse me, please. Who can I submit my application to?" the man asked quietly. At that moment, Olivia glanced at her colleagues and realized that none of them were going to help the homeless man. "Come here, sir. I'll help you. What do you have there? Do you need an ID card?" the woman asked politely. Her colleagues gave her a contemptuous look, after which they got back to dealing with their documents. They understood perfectly well that the homeless man had nothing to do at their office for one simple reason. He definitely didn't need documents living out on the streets. "Sit down, sir. It won't take long," Olivia said, still being polite, and seated the visitor in a chair. Then she quickly filled out the forms and handed them over to the man to sign. At that moment, the door opened and David White came into the office. Out of habit, the chief looked around the room and immediately noticed the homeless man sitting half-turned towards him. "What's going on, Olivia? What is this homeless man doing here? What do you think we have here? A homeless shelter?" David exclaimed, not even attempting to hide his indignation. The woman shuddered in fright, and her face immediately turned pale. "Mr. White, sir, I'm just doing my job and nothing more," Olivia added quietly. The chief's face immediately turned purple from the anger that overwhelmed his soul. "Is that what you think your job is? Wasting your time on some beggar off the street? Maybe he should bring his friends in so that they can all get documents here. Let me remind you, we're not running a homeless shelter here, and this beggar must have gotten lost." Olivia tried to calm her boss down, but there was no stopping David. Seeing that the trainee wasn't going to obey his orders, the man called the guard, who immediately scooped up the homeless man and was about to throw him outside. "And you, if you like the homeless people so much, you can go with him. You're fired," the boss screamed and pointed to the door with his hand. "But sir, why are you doing this to me? I didn't do anything wrong. I was just following the job instructions," Olivia pleaded. Unfortunately, her words didn't have the desired effect on David. At that moment, the man was 100% sure that he needed to get rid of the young trainee. It's hard to say how it all would have ended if the homeless man hadn't started acting weird. He pushed the guard away and stood in the middle of the room. He touched his head and took off his wig. After that, the man peeled off his beard. Standing in front of the astonished head of the passport office was a completely different man. Olivia thought that the visitor's face looked vaguely familiar, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't remember where she'd seen him before. "What kind of circus is this?" David White whispered in amazement. The man grinned and, looking into David's eyes, answered, "Circus? It's no circus, Mr. White. It's a test I run in every government office in the city. By the way, I'm the new mayor of the city, Alfred Nelson. I hope you've heard of me." Of course I've heard of you," David whispered. "Well, since you know who I am now, please vacate your office, and let all those employees who refuse to help a U.S. citizen join you," the mayor said in a tone that brooked no objections. David White immediately turned white as chalk. He clearly didn't expect such a turn of events and realized that he failed to pass the test designed to identify corrupt officials. For so many years, David felt that he could do whatever he wanted without any repercussions, managing the passport department as he pleased. And now, because of that impotent woman and the mayor playing dress-up, he lost all the power his position ever gave him. Having left the office, accompanied by all the other dismissing employees, he no longer felt like he owned the world and was all too aware of the fact that he was just an ordinary, unemployed person now. Alfred Nelson turned to Olivia, and the woman immediately remembered where she'd seen him before. Why does he look so much like Kevin's father? And his last name is the same. That's it, it's Kevin's uncle, Alfred, whom I've heard so much about, Olivia thought. The new mayor smiled approvingly at the woman and then publicly announced that she had been appointed the head of the passport department. Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes. She couldn't have even dreamed of getting such an important position after just 3 months at the job. But the most important thing was still ahead of her. When Alfred came to visit his brother, he told him an interesting story about a brave and honest woman named Olivia Clarke. "But I know her. She's my son's girlfriend," Rupert whispered in shock. "Oh wow, well maybe it's time you took their relationship to the next level," Alfred said, hinting at marriage. The brother's words had such a positive effect on Rupert that he immediately changed his anger to mercy and accepted Kevin's choice. The wedding took place a month later, when Olivia had already settled into her new position and recruited the new staff at the office. Looking at the newlyweds, Rupert Nelson was sure that their life together would be full of great moments that they would want to remember for the rest of their lives.